Okay, so I'm a prison lawyer, and I'm here to tell you that prison is fun. I mean, it's so much fun, it's an absolute riot. I mean, it's a literal riot. This is a picture of the Strangeways riots from 1990, which was the longest-running prison riot in UK history. And after sort of the dust had settled and they sorted it out, there was an inquiry by the government to see what had caused the riot, and they were told that the reason was that the prison conditions had become intolerable and things had to change, and happily they did. But unfortunately, we then fast forward to December of last year, when I'm sure you all saw this. Look at that, they're having a whale of a time. There was a massive riot in HMP Birmingham. There was a great deal of damage. Hundreds of prisoners were involved, and there was a massive clean-up operation. And I remember at the time it was happening, the Justice Secretary said that the people involved were going to feel the full force of the law, which I thought was a strange thing to say to people who have clearly already felt the full force of the law. They're in prison. But anyway, I mean, she's probably right, because as we hear from the papers all of the time, prisons are holiday camps. I'm sure you've seen these headlines before. They've all got these luxuries. They've got phones, they've got PlayStations, all kinds of things. The Daily Star at the weekend said that Alt Course down the road is like a luxury hotel, which makes me query whether they've ever been in a prison or a hotel. But let's question that for a second. So in 2010, obviously, austerity happened, and we had to have loads and loads of cuts. So I'm sure at first they thought, let's get rid of the TVs and the PlayStations and things. I'm sure that'll add up. Except, obviously, it doesn't add up to $2 billion. The only way you get rid of that kind of costs is through your wage bill. So about 30 to 40% of prison staff have been lost since 2010. It's about 10,000 frontline full-time staff have been lost since then. Luckily, obviously, they've made sure that the prison population stays okay, so they can manage that, except no, they haven't. The prison population is around 85,000, and it continues to go up, and it's been that level since 2010. It's about 10,000 more than the Ministry of Justice think it's safe themselves, and fun fact, Birmingham was at 130% capacity when the riots happened, and it wasn't even in the top 10. What happens when you haven't got enough staff and too many prisoners? Things like this, and it's not just the staff. If you could see the state one of my clients turned up to his parole hearing at the other day, it would shock you. They are absolutely terribly dangerous places at the moment. And what else happens? These things happen because there isn't enough staff to properly man security and things like that. I've had clients who've been caught taking things off these in both Liverpool and Alt Course recently. And so what kind of things do they bring in? They bring in things like spice. Now, mambulance is a term that they use for the ambulances that have to go every day almost for people who've had spice attacks. And I've had 20-year veteran heroin addicts tell me that that stuff is too strong for them, which should give you an idea of how bad it is. And the government's response to legal highs was to make them illegal, which, again, prisoners only do things that are legal, of course. There was a time when phones had to be small enough to get up your backside to get into prison, but not anymore because of the drones and things like that. They've got iPhones, and it's not just for drug sort of deals. Sometimes it costs a week's wages to speak to your family in prison. So, of course, you're going to use those illegal means if you can do. And I was in Forest Bank this morning. Some of them have been caught with iPads, and I'll tell you one thing. You do not get an iPad in over the wall, or there's only one way you get that in. I'm going to leave you to ponder that. What about these TVs that they've all supposedly got now? I think it would be better if they all did have TVs, because at least then when they're locked up 23 hours a day because there aren't enough staff for them to do anything useful, and they'd have something to distract themselves. Because what happens when you've got damaged people who are locked up 23 hours a day without anything to do? You get 119 self-inflicted deaths in 2016 in prison, which is twice as high as it was in 2012. It's 8.6 times higher than the general population, and it is a fucking disgrace. They're not holiday camps, is what I'm trying to say. And why should we care about this? Because I'm sure you're all thinking, I'm not in prison. I'm probably never going to go to prison. Why should I care about this? Well, because almost all of those 85,000 people are going to be back here with us at some point. And you'd like to think that the time they spend in prison is productive and they come out as pro-social people. And at the very, very least, that they come out less damaged than they went in, which is not what is happening at the moment. At all. You can get 10 extra years on your sentence for rioting. They are not doing it for fun, regardless of what the papers might tell you. Now, Liz Truss, Justice Secretary, she has promised to fill the 10,000 staff gap with some lovely newly trained 2,500 staff, which I'm sure is going to fix the problem immediately when it is an acute crisis and you can get new staff right away, and that will solve the problem. Absolutely it will. And if I haven't managed to convince you with the moral argument, perhaps look at this. This is how much it costs to keep someone in prison for a year. And if I was paying that much for something, I'd want more than I'm getting at the moment, quite frankly. Now, I hope in the last 4.5 minutes or so, I've managed to convince you that there's a need for some political will to fix this problem that's sadly lacking at the moment. And if you are interested in talking to me about it, please come and talk to me. Thank you.